Here's the uncomfortable reality. When rent falls quickly in a major American city, it usually isn't generosity. It's gravity. Prices decline when demand weakens, migration slows, insurance premiums rise, or job growth cools enough to shift leverage back to tenants. In 2026, several cities are experiencing that mix. The pandemic relocation surge has normalized, office vacancies remain elevated in some regions, and developers who built for peak optimism are now competing for a smaller renter pool. When pricing power shifts this clearly, it tells you something about momentum beneath the surface. This ranking looks at major U.S. cities where rents are falling, notably in 2026, evaluated against population direction, employment stability, tax and insurance pressure, and long-term structural confidence. Temporary oversupply gets context. Structural fragility gets penalized. Let's break it down. Number 10. Austin, Texas. Austin became a symbol of momentum. Tech hiring surged, corporate relocations accelerated, and new residents arrived in waves. Developers built aggressively, but in 2026, that optimism is cooling. Rents are easing as inventory catches up and migration settles toward normal levels. The fundamentals remain relatively solid. The job market is still diverse by Texas standards, and the city attracts entrepreneurs and remote workers, yet property taxes trend high and insurance costs across Texas have reportedly risen in recent years. When operating expenses increase while demand stabilizes, landlords lose pricing power. This feels cyclical rather than structural. You may secure a better lease. The key question is whether job growth keeps pace and whether new construction slows enough to rebalance supply. Here we go with number 9, Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix built its appeal on space and affordability. Migration surged earlier in the decade, pushing rents up. Developers responded quickly, and now the market is recalibrating. New supply meets slower in migration, and landlords are adjusting. Long-term considerations matter. Water policy and infrastructure planning shape how businesses view expansion in the region. Job growth continues, but not at boom levels. When expectations cool, pricing follows and incentives become more common. Unlike Austin's tech-driven story, Phoenix faces broader sustainability questions. Lower rent looks appealing in the short term. Long-term resilience matters more if you plan to stay beyond a single lease cycle. Number 8. Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville's cultural energy fueled steady growth. Developers added large numbers of apartments, especially at the higher end of the market. In 2026, that expansion meets more measured demand. Concessions are common in newer buildings competing for tenants. The economy leans on tourism, healthcare, and services. Those sectors can be durable but remain sensitive to national slowdowns and consumer confidence. There's no state income tax, yet everyday costs and insurance still shape household budgets in practical ways. Here the issue is income alignment. If your earnings are portable and stable, the dip creates opportunity. If not, tighter margins make lower rent less transformative than it first appears. We move on with number 7, Denver, Colorado. Denver promotes balance, professional jobs, outdoor access, and diversified industry. Rent declines reflect new deliveries and slower population growth after the migration wave faded. Insurance costs tied to wildfire exposure and severe weather have reportedly increased across Colorado in recent years. That shapes landlord expenses and long-term affordability. When risk pricing rises, housing markets respond even if demand remains steady. Falling rent here signals normalization, not retreat. But the broader cost structure, from insurance to general living expenses, remains elevated, which limits how far prices are likely to fall. We move on. Number 6. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas runs on tourism and hospitality. When national spending expands, the city accelerates. When it cools, demand softens quickly. Rent has eased as construction meets steadier arrivals and visitor growth stabilizes. Economic concentration is the key issue. Employment tied to conventions, gaming, and entertainment can fluctuate with broader economic cycles. Nevada's lack of state income tax is attractive. yet income volatility can offset that benefit during slower periods. This decline reflects economic sensitivity more than oversupply. When consumer confidence dips, housing demand in leisure-driven markets often follows with a short delay. Number 5. Tampa, Florida. Tampa benefited from strong migration into Florida. Rents climbed sharply as new residents arrived seeking lower taxes and warmer weather. In 2026, momentum has cooled. Supply increased, migration moderated, and pricing is adjusting accordingly. Insurance dynamics shape the bigger picture. Florida has been widely reported as facing some of the highest property insurance pressures in the country, especially in coastal areas exposed to storms. Those costs influence landlords and gradually affect rent decisions over time. Lower rent may provide relief in the near term. Long-term predictability remains less certain when insurance markets are still recalibrating. Number 4. Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta remains a southeastern business hub with diversified industries and a steady corporate presence. Rent declines reflect a surge of apartment construction that briefly exceeded wage growth and household formation. Infrastructure strain, particularly traffic congestion and transportation capacity, remains a daily factor that shapes where people choose to live within the metro area. Growth continues, but at a normalized pace compared with earlier expansion years. Here, the adjustment feels tied to supply timing rather than structural weakness. When development runs ahead of sustained demand, prices reset. We go on with number 3. New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans offers cultural depth few cities can match. Economically, it faces persistent challenges. Population trends have been uneven, and coastal insurance costs have reportedly climbed after repeated storms and rebuilding cycles. Rent declines here signal caution about long-term resilience rather than simple oversupply. The economy leans on tourism, port activity, and energy, sectors that fluctuate with national and global cycles. Infrastructure investment continues, yet recovery is uneven across neighborhoods. You gain character, history, and community. You accept environmental exposure and slower wage growth. At this level, falling rent feels less like a temporary discount and more like a signal about sustained confidence. Here is number 2. San Francisco, California. San Francisco carries the narrative of permanent scarcity. Limited land and global tech influence long-supported high rents, yet in 2026, prices have declined again after years of volatility. Remote work reduced the necessity of living near downtown offices. Commercial vacancies remain elevated in parts of the city, and some employers maintain smaller physical footprints. Population growth has slowed from earlier peaks, and certain households have relocated to lower-cost regions. The city remains expensive relative to most of the country. High taxes and regulatory complexity persist, but the belief that rent only moves upward no longer holds. When work patterns shift and confidence softens, even premier markets recalibrate in measurable ways. We come to number 1. Who else? Where? In Chicago, Illinois. Chicago positions itself as a global city with comparatively moderate housing costs. It offers finance, healthcare, logistics, education, and cultural depth within a dense urban core. In 2026, rents are falling more noticeably in certain neighborhoods. Illinois faces long-running fiscal strain with high property taxes and widely discussed pension obligations shaping policy debates. Population growth has been flat or slightly negative in recent years. Some households continue relocating to lower tax states, reducing incremental demand. The job base is diversified, offering resilience, yet business climate concerns and public safety perception influence decisions at the margin. When rent declines coincide with stagnant population and fiscal pressure, the signal extends beyond temporary oversupply and into long-term confidence. That's the common thread across this entire list. Falling rent often reflects shifting expectations before those shifts appear clearly in broader statistics. Migration normalizes, insurance costs rise, and job markets cool. Developers adjust timelines and incentives. None of these cities are defined by one metric alone. Each has strengths, assets, and trade-offs. But cheaper housing does not automatically mean stronger fundamentals. Sometimes it signals that the market is pricing in risk more realistically. If you prefer analysis grounded in trends rather than slogans, subscribe. We focus on signals early, before they become obvious headlines. Next, we'll examine cities where rent is still climbing in 2026 and whether that climb reflects durable strength or simply delayed correction. Because in housing, direction matters, and the reason behind it matters even more.